This episode is sponsored by Zenro Clothing Co. Pick up your tees and or accessories at zenroclothingco.com and be sure to use offer code Socrates at checkout for 20% off select items. Also, if you're not into spending the money, just check out the Zenrail radio playlist. zenrailclothingco.com, music for your everyday. This episode also sponsored by The Portian Bakery. If you're located in the Portian area of Scarborough, Toronto, be sure to check out The Portian Bakery, say what's up to Arville, and pick up a donut or two. Baked daily, crafted with love. This episode also sponsored by Podbean. Podbean is the podcasting platform of choice. It's the one that me and Vish use, and is great, you know, if you're looking to start that DIY podcast yourself. Definitely check out Podbean. Use the link podbean.com/SocraticGamers and gain 1 month of unlimited podcasting for free. Test it out, build that content. Anyone can podcast, right, Vish?
Yep.
Start a podcast and get your ideas out there. All right, enjoy the episode. So hard stop at 10:30, so I'm gonna try and keep this tight. But the first thing that I wanted to bring up was I was thinking about doing a DBZ update, but maybe I'll save it for after this one first because it's anime related. But we saw Boy and the Heron.
Yeah.
You remember they were talking about that one? Like it was like a TIFF or something. Your brother said.
Yeah.
All right. Did you see it yet?
No.
Okay, you love Studio Ghibli, right? You liked Spirited Away. You like that weird anime.
Yeah.
I don't know, magical universe kind of thing. All right, so this one, you know how he has that thing where it's like you kind of just like have a normal life and you go into this world and you're kind of like, oh, it's like so random, and then you like leave the world. But there's like a deeper meaning. So this is like that, but next level. Like me, your brother, and my sister were like, I don't know what's going on. It was just too artsy that I think you might like it. Like my sister at the end was like, she's like, that was actually about his trauma and how because his mother dies in the very opening scene, and like the whole thing is him like overcoming his mother's trauma. Like if you had to explain it to me after the movie, like I feel like it wasn't a good movie because it was too deep. Like just the art, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny though because there's those levels of art. You know, like you look at like a Warhol painting or something. You know, where it's like a can of soup, and you're like, "What are you trying to say here?" And you have to like deconstruct it. But I feel like my mind isn't where your mind is. That's why I think you'd like it because it's very like artsy in that way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's like levels to this thing, like consumer mentality. You know, like. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, like movies seem like an unplug. Like I'd rather watch a movie than read the book.
Well, I think that's why.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
That's why we have. I mean, that's what the blockbusters are for, right? A lot of those ones are just the unplug, right? And but I think to push art sometimes it's not going to be liked by everybody. That's probably a given. But that's art is subjective.
Yeah, totally, and it's like. It got 7.7. That's why I wanted to go watch it. But I would have rated
7.7?
4.5. Yeah, it got pretty.
Oh no! I mean, it was. I just looked at Rotten Tomatoes just now. It was like 90%. I'm talking about the audience score.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Damn. See, that's the thing. It's like. Also, I don't know if like subs took away from the movie.
Oh,
like,
maybe it could.
Japanese.
Yeah. Right. It was Japanese.
So I was like too.
Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't English.
So, No. So I was like too focused on the reading, maybe. I don't know. But like, yeah, it's I don't know. Those like art movies. Because did you see the I don't know if you've seen it, but like the Robert Pattinson one where he's like in a lighthouse, and then it got so good, but it looked so badly filmed, and it was about like a mermaid or something like that. I think it was called The Lighthouse.
Yeah. No, I didn't see it. I tried watching a little bit, but that wasn't.
That's too much, right?
There's a level. There's a level of art. Sometimes I think some of these things also like throw back to like old movies or like some.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Homage. Yeah, and I don't know too much about the old movies, so.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because I was watching some interviews with Robert Pattinson, and he was saying how he'd prefer to do those movies than like Batman. Like Batman gets him into stardomhood, but then that allows him to pick movies like The Lighthouse because he prefers those kinds of like artsy, but it's just like, what are you looking for? I don't know. It's weird. Like the world is so nuanced and there's so many levels to this thing, like
Mm-hmm.
life, that you never like you know, it's like when you think that world peace is achievable, it's like how we all don't like the same things, you know?
Yeah.
Like art and like the way we want to live our lives and like all these choices. Yeah. But what was cool though for The Boy and the Heron is because I forgot how much I never used to watch dub because it was like frowned upon in high school. You're like, oh, why aren't you gonna watch the Japanese one, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
subbed. No, yeah, subs. No,
Sub.
dub.
Oh,
So
oh
they
yeah,
were
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Right.
like dub or sub, right? And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, I can only watch anime and sub, right? But because I watch it at 2 times speed now, it's like I can't read the
Yeah, yeah,
subtitles,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I have to listen to English. And then when I watched The Boy and the Heron, I forgot all the Japanese words that I knew. So they were saying it, and I was like, "Oh no, it actually means this." But your like subtitle, like so he'd be like "hi," which is like yes, but then it would be like "yes, ma'am," and you're like, "No, there's no ma'am there," because they don't like differentiate like that. It's just like yes. But I think to like make it more understandable for the Western audience, they had to add those additional words,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
context kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah. But it's weird though, because it's like in your subconscious, you never think about how much is sunk in just by like listening and then reading it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's almost like Rosetta Stone in that way. Like the Rosetta
Yeah,
Stone where you
yeah,
can
yeah,
like
yeah.
learn.
Right.
Yeah. I tried to learn Cantonese back in the day using Rosetta Stone. And that's how they would do it. They'd like say a conversation and then they'd say it in English. So
Mm-hmm.
then you can start like understanding the context of how things are said. Have you noticed that? And you're like, I mean, not with, because I know you speak a different language, but like Japanese. Have you noticed that too?
Yeah,
It's like,
I always
you know what I
do.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, I, I, I look at the different versions. Even the dubbed versions are always
Mm,
going to be different too, because they can only play
that's true
with
too.
so
Yeah.
much space that they have, right? With the words that they
Yeah.
could use. So
Facts.
even that changes from the English subtitles.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's weird. Like we're such a sponge for. I mean, I guess even that's a great example of like how you can learn certain words in Japanese. It's like we're such a sponge to our environment, and we don't even realize it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I didn't realize I was learning those Japanese terms until it's like, oh yeah, that just started clicking because they keep repeating.
Yeah.
And English, right? When people say like they learned another language just by speaking it, there's actually, if you think about how many words we actually use, it's probably limited to about like maybe 200.
Hmm.
Only when we're getting really deep with it that we
Sure.
start using words that are like more arbitrary.
Yeah,
Like even
yeah,
the word
yeah.
arbitrary, it's like that's a higher level of English that you're
Hmm. Yeah,
using.
you're not going to
You know
use
what I'm
those
saying?
in normal terms. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right,
In
totally,
regular
totally.
dialogue.
So
Yeah.
right, right. And then it makes you think like maybe I could learn way more languages. Like maybe there's like you're looking at the mountain too big if you want to learn the language. It's like, no, I just need like a little hill so I can converse with people.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
yeah, it's faster to learn when you're surrounded by it. I feel just then
Yeah, facts.
you're picking up on things that because you have to learn to communicate. Like that's one thing, right?
Mm.
You're so, but you're gonna quickly figure out some things, and then you can expand on those kinds of things. Of course, that's just only by speaking. That's not writing, but that's different.
Yeah, facts. Totally, totally, totally. And it's interesting that you said like the environment thing because I remember like every time I go to the Philippines, there's like a weird click in my head that like my English just like shifts to a different kind of English and my like ability to understand what they're saying has just increased exponentially.
Hmm.
But if I was here in Canada and somebody's talking to me in that same language, I'd be like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Hmm.
But if we were in the Philippines, I'd be like, oh yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right.
Like remember I told you my cousin and I like he didn't speak English and I didn't speak
Hmm.
his language, but we were having a full conversation based on like the few words that we knew.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, oh, this would never happen in Canada. You
yeah.
know?
Right.
Yeah. It's totally like submersing yourself immersing
Um,
yourself in a culture is like super important. That'd be pretty cool to try. Like one day in the future, if you just like went to different places. I mean, you'd be super rich for this, but if you like went to different places for like 2 months and see how much you could pick up like linguistically, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. there are people that I
Mhm.
work with who speak like 4 languages. I'm like, bro, how'd you do that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even in India, it's like because you're like even next state is a different language, right? So
Yeah.
you're likely to know a few more languages than the basic one or two, right?
So what do you think that is? Is that like a mental hack? Like you figured it out, so then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna apply the same pattern to everything. You know what I'm saying?
It depends. Yeah, some of them have, even though they're next day, there is some similarities, right, to the language.
Totally,
Like
totally.
the
But like this person that speaks like 4 languages, they speak like French, Spanish, English. I forgot what the other one was.
mhm.
Maybe Portuguese. Like I guess French, Spanish, and Portuguese are similar,
They
maybe,
could
but
be.
like I'm sure they're still pretty varied. Like so I'm like, how
I've
did you
seen.
learn all
Yeah,
four?
I've seen these videos where it's like you let's just say like watermelon or something, and then like everybody in the
Yeah.
like a British person or a Spanish person, like you're seeing how close they are. Some of these words are very
Oh, that's
similar.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah, totally, totally, totally. It's like it's etymology, like
Mm-hmm.
the origin of words. Like I'll get into this later, but chronos, like
Yeah.
chronograph, time.
Mm-hmm.
There's the jump, and like we would never like chronos is I think it's like a Greek word,
Yeah.
but time is an
It's
English word.
isn't that the Titan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like think about it, right? It's like that's the trace, and maybe that's how it is in like Spanish and the other 3 languages he knows. Maybe they're like they have a like a through line.
Well, I think they
It's
would
just like
be
chronos. Okay, I get it.
yeah, a lot of these ones like his I think what historically Latin was the Europe's older language. So they're connecting
Oh, okay, interesting.
from Latin.
Okay, okay. And then like similar,
Mm-hmm.
like it'd be like the chronos thing. Like even if you hadn't heard. Well, maybe you would have had heard Chronos before. The only reason why I knew is yeah, the video game, the god,
Right, right, right.
like time. Yeah, it's weird too. Like, how do you how does one look at language in their head? Is it like this is a different way of saying this, or is it like these are more additions to my vocabulary? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. What I understand is I think that it's really a different way of like some words are not doesn't they don't exist in other languages like in English to
Yep,
compare
yep,
to like some
yeah.
Indian languages, let's say. So the expression or the way that you say it or way that you understand it is much more different. That sometimes you can't exactly translate some words, right?
So then it's like those words become additions, and then like the other words become synonyms. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like it's like, oh, these are just other words to use that word.
They're trying to get that meaning, but it's always not the same. It's just, it can't be
Okay, you totally. So
in all
I was trying
circumstances.
to figure this out.
Hmm.
I was trying to figure this out on the drive back this morning. It's like I was going through the Japanese words that I knew from The Boy and the Heron, and it's like so Kasan is mom, right? But I was like, when I was thinking about it in my head, but maybe I'm doing this all wrong, so I want to ask you because you're like more linguistically, your prowess is better than mine because you have an actual language that you fully understand, whereas mine's like kind of drips of it. So anyway, Kasan means mom, and then when I was thinking about the word, I just imagined the mom, but
Hmm.
I wasn't thinking like Kasan mom, mother.
No, no, no. Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I wasn't creating synonyms for it. I was just like seeing the picture in my head. Is that is so maybe it's not even a
I think,
synonym like
yeah, I think if you know the language, it's going to be just like that.
the picture, right?
Yeah,
In your
yeah, of
head.
course, yeah. But
So
I don't know
okay,
if
yeah, because
everyone's
I'm like
mind works the same though. Some people
that's what
again,
I'm wondering.
that's
Like, how does this work, bro? How'd you learn 4 languages, bro? Like, tell me the hack. I want to learn it too.
I think
I
it's,
just don't
but
get it.
I think when you're young, it's more malleable. And then I guess
Hmm.
if you're between, I would say like those languages that are next to each other, Spanish, French, right, Portuguese, they have some
Yeah,
similarities. So there's gonna be you're gonna catch up, you're gonna pick up on those things, and then
easier.
it'll make it a little bit easier. Yeah.
Or maybe it's even like the rules. You know
Mm-hmm.
how like like I don't even know the English rules. But it's because when you grow up with it, like you don't have to study it as like a language. But then listening to people who have come from a different country and then learning English, you're like, oh, your rules are different. I'm like, what rules are you talking about?
Mhm.
But like, I guess with all right, we'll go with French because I know that this term. So je ne sais pas or something like that. Je ne. So like ne and pas at the end of the middle word creates a no.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But like for us, it would just be like, I don't understand.
Yeah, right.
So je ne, I don't, and then understand, and then but you have to add pas at the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Mhm.
But you're like, oh, that's a rule that I wouldn't have known. So for me, it would have come as like je ne sais or whatever. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, there's specific ways you group words together, like conjunctive words, like Wow, this is an English lesson podcast. But you know what I'm saying? Like the cat went to the store. There's a bunch of words in there that join cat and store together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think those are our rules. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, but I think
That they're
there's
saying that our
yeah,
rules are different.
but I think I've heard like where French, because of the rules, it makes it a bit easier to learn it
That's what I've heard.
because
That's what I've heard. English is the hardest one because our
Mhm.
rules are broken all the time.
Yeah.
So even if you say something that it's like, oh, this is how you should do it, it's like, but then colloquially speaking, nobody's going to speak that way.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Writing is
Yeah.
different than talking, like how you speak it to somebody. Yeah.
Or totally. And like, there's another one. So like, Japanese gomenasai is I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure it's I'm sorry. But then in the anime, they were going gome.
Hmm.
They didn't add the nasai. So I was like, oh, is that more like the colloquial, like sorry
Hmm.
versus I'm sorry? Like, you know what I mean? Like the more formal way of saying it versus the like
The yeah,
common
yeah, yeah,
person.
common,
Like,
yeah, right.
it's what's really interesting too. So even like terms that are because like I know people who like I was saying who know different languages, and I would say something like my bad,
Hmm.
and it would be so confusing at first because they're like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
What did you
yeah,
do wrong?
right.
And you're like, oh, I get it. It's like the way we're interpreting that term is not how you're taking it so literally.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is fascinating too,
Hmm.
because you're like, good luck catching up, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the shortcuts, and it keeps changing. Like every
Yeah.
generation brings their own, so it's hard to. Again, you're only going to be if you're like teaching English, you're going to teach the proper way of English, maybe even
Yeah.
British English, but that's not North American English.
people speak,
It's
yeah.
it's different.
But yeah, totally. And I think that's why it was hard for me to have classes because I did do Filipino classes for a while, but it was just too structured that I was like, why am I trying to learn like mathematics here?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we would never speak really in that way. And then if you did speak that way, they kind of like laugh at you for being too formal.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know that this is a foreigner, or he's learning the language. It's not like a local.
Yeah. But I do like it when they speak that way because it's so like endearing. Because like this person's like, "Thank you so much for your input," and I'm like, "Why did you say it like that?" You know what I mean? But it's like that is how you like would have learned
Learned
it or
that.
something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's true. That's true.
greetings to all, and you're like, "Oh no, we don't say that, bro." Like, but okay, I get where you're coming from. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. People are so cool. All right. Anyways, let's jump to DBZ. I finished Dragon Ball, and it. All right. So I wanted to like jump back into this because we talked about it. So remember, like me and Wald were so obsessed with Dragon Ball,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Dragon Ball Z,
yeah.
right? So I was like, is it even good? So I know when I started Dragon Ball, I was like messaging you guys like, this is the weirdest anime ever because it's so perverted, like next level perverted.
Mhm.
So like, there's like the master who, there's like this little girl, and she's like underage, and then they just keep showing her naked. And you're just like, what are you doing? And then like that's how they kind of entice the master to teach them,
Mhm.
because he's like really into like young girls.
Okay.
And it's just and it was great. And you're like, bro, this would not fly today. But how did it fly back then, And
Well, I don't know if
and like
I don't know if it necessarily would fly today here, but I think that's part of Japan. Like,
right. Yeah,
right?
yeah, right. That's their like stereotypes, right? Like dirty old man,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is who this person was portraying.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the Dragon Ball character of Goku because I really think it's like an analysis of our society because he comes from the full like it starts out with them looking for the Dragon Balls. They run to Goku, who had never met anyone outside world, right? He lived with his grandpa, and
Right.
then his grandpa taught him like stuff. And then when he's like going through the anime, he's confused about a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
that are like not normal, but like a lot of things that they highlight, like our obsession with money, sexuality, all that's drugs, and then he's just like confused by it. And I'm like, are we supposed to look at it through Goku's lens as if like our society's confused? You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like a satire, not a satire, well maybe a satire actually, on like how we live our lives, you know? And
Yeah.
and I'm like, and I'm like, it's if you look at it in that way, it doesn't become perverted.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're like, oh, those are just stereotypes that we have to like avoid. Because Goku's like, he's always like, what? That's weird. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. So okay, so that's Dragon Ball, and like the whole thing is focused around like the human fighters and like the strongest person on Earth. Okay. Then we get into Dragon Ball Z, which I'm currently in, and it dovetails into like aliens, which is like I was like telling you, but it
Mm-hmm.
actually makes sense because when we were kids, like Vegeta was from a Saiyan race, and like the Saiyans were taking over planets, and like. But it was interesting that this came out in the 90s and they baked in a lot of the things that I'm reading about now, which is like government psyops and like, oh, just call it a weather balloon.
Mm-hmm.
The way the media portrays, like, because he lands on Earth and then they're like, oh, it's an alien. And then they're like, no, cover ups. I mean, they try and like cover up the fact that he's an alien.
Well, okay.
You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think maybe that's like we all think about Dragon Ball Z in terms of um, like just a repetitive fight.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the genius behind it is like it's telling us something about ourselves.
Yeah. I
You know?
think. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's the goal of any kind of movie or show is to tell us something about us. I mean, these are all
So,
art
okay,
pieces, right?
for sure.
In that
No,
sense.
facts, facts. So okay, so we hit this point now where he's fighting Frieza. Okay, and Vegeta wants Goku to kill Frieza at any cost, and he
Mm-hmm.
keeps saying like it's just a game, like this is just a battle for power. And then Goku's like, everybody has the capacity within them to change. I'm not going to give up on
Right.
like Frieza. I'm sure he has some good inside of him, right? So like with that, so you're like, oh, it's an art piece, and like there's like a lesson that they're trying to teach you. But then I look at again, this is going back to like anime versus cartoon, and I'm just like, I don't like if you have main characters talking about like never giving up on the good inside of another person and like, you know what I'm saying? Whereas like other ones are all about like, I don't know, think about Archie comics, Riverdale,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's all about like high school drama. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Sure.
And like, and then this is the cultural programming that we're all receiving.
I think it
Because could
depends.
you say,
I understand what you're saying, and I feel like things that touch people or stay people with them the longest generally
Yeah.
have some, I would say, cultural, like societal impact or something,
okay,
or some teaching
okay,
moment. Yeah, in
okay,
in
totally,
those stories.
totally. Sure. Okay, now I'm going to ask you about two shows that are super popular: Wednesday and Stranger Things. Did you see Wednesday?
Sure. No, I'll tell you. Let me add a little caveat to
Okay,
it.
go
I'm
ahead.
saying that lasts the time. They can be popular for a short period of time, but may not last
Oh,
the
I see what you're
time.
saying. It's a fad. You're like, oh, it's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah. It depends. That's what I'm saying. You're looking at how long this. I don't see anybody talking about it Wednesday right now.
touche. Yeah, you're right. Ah, interesting. Interesting. But then what does that say about our society then? It's like just fads. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. But those are part of the thing, and then again, the ones that last the longest are the ones who've had an actual impact. Like think about like right.
Good point.
There's not too many things. They always try to do that. I feel like companies they want to have shows that have a huge impact that actually
Yeah.
affect the world, but it's hard to find those. It's hard to get those, something like
Yeah.
that to happen. Like like the only thing was what I can remember that was that big from, like, let's say HBO was Game of Thrones. Like the whole world was into that, and that was going on for a while, right?
Yeah, but Game of Thrones had a lot of deep lessons too, though.
But that's what I'm
Like it was
saying.
about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, right. I see. I get it. I get it now. So it's like, yeah, you can catch fire, but it will dissipate quickly, just as quickly as it came.
Yeah,
Right. Like everyone, it was all about Wednesday, and now everyone's all about One Piece. You
sure.
know,
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
live action.
Yeah.
And then World of the Next, or Stranger Things. Everyone was all about Stranger Things. But then the ones that we'll revisit, like why am I rewatching Dragon Ball Z? You know, because it's like, oh, what were the lessons?
Yeah.
What were the things in there? So it's like why people rewatch Game of Thrones, because it was actually a lot about society.
Yeah,
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like the longevity of it. The something's like something's a trend, or it's a like a timeless classic.
right. Yeah.
That's a fair point, actually. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, cool. Yeah, because like I was confused by, like, I didn't get into like all the things that everyone's like. I tried it for a bit, but it's just like it just felt so hollow to me that I was just like, I can't
Sure.
just watch this.
Yeah.
You know? Huh. Interesting. Okay. Anything else about arcs? I'm gonna kind of jump into a bit of spirituality here.
No, I don't think. No.
Oh, actually, wait. One thing that I thought was interesting, because we were gonna watch either Boy and the Heron or Godzilla.
-1.
And when your brother was like, oh, it's actually, so we got the tickets already for the Boy and the Heron, and he's like, oh, it's in Japanese. I was like, no, because now I gotta read it. I was like, oh, is like we should have watched Godzilla, and he's like, oh, that's also in Japanese. I was like, what? I didn't realize, like, okay, the strike is kind of weird now, because I'm like, are you just putting anything out like to make money at the theaters?
No, but that wouldn't be. That's not Hollywood though, right? Godzilla -1 or even Boy and the Heron. These are Japanese.
No, I know that.
Not that.
Right, but I mean, like, are you putting anything out in the theaters now just to make money so that they survive?
Oh no. I don't think it's like that. I think these movies were coming out, anyways.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That maybe
like if you're saying
Japanese movies out.
Yeah, but if you're saying that, oh, they're trying to make money, then they would be in all theaters. They're not in all theaters. I think the Boy and the Heron may be in all theaters because it's a bit more popular, because it was at TIFF and stuff. But the Godzilla -1 is not everywhere.
Yeah, that's why we went with the Boy and the Heron, because it was actually at Pickering, whereas like the Godzilla one was only in Markham, like your area. So I was like, yeah, the thing about those region specific things is so funny, because the Godzilla one was in Markham, but it wasn't in Empress Walk, which was confusing to us, because we're like, this is an Asian area. But then I was like, but it's a Korean Asian area.
Yeah.
So if you go to like Empress Walk's movie theaters, all Koreans, all Korean movies.
Yeah.
Or Hindi movies. Maybe we get Hindi movies too, which is weird. And like, then it tells you about the area. You know what I'm saying? It's like, do you guys not like Japanese things? You're like, well, why is it only here? I was confused, you know? But Markham makes sense. Like a lot of Asian people there. Yeah. Do you get like a lot of ethnic movies in your area? Like how I have like Korean movies. Like,
no, I think there's Korean and Chinese and
okay.
And I think the one we saw was in Richmond Hill. So the Godzilla. Okay. Yeah. Even I think Richmond Hill has Hindi movies and stuff now too. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. See, that's going to be the most interesting thing about. Okay. All right, this is a statistic that I had to figure out in a professional setting, and I'm just gonna bring it up here because, like, it's like, oh, that this, like, what we're talking about actually makes sense. So, I had to do like a demographic analysis for Canada, like a strategic,
right.
You know, just marketers have to do that stuff. So, like, I was researching like demographics, and Stats Canada actually came out with a lot of stuff, and they were saying since 2001 to 2020. I think that was the date range. People outside of Canada jumped like 400%. Like Filipinos jumped by 200%, and like all this other stuff. And I think it was specifically they mentioned Filipinos, Japanese, and Koreans, and they had like such high percentages. And then what they predict, they just put this out by 2041. Basically, Canada will all just be first generation, like
immigrants.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 90% of it, right? The white population is like declining.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I had put that out, I was like, it's pretty self-evident. So, all right, basically this is about lived experience. Okay. And it's interesting to me the more I delve into, like, because marketing is really all about psychology. Okay. It's like, why did you choose that picture or that slogan or something, right? Because it has to compel you. Like, right?
Sure.
Marketing is just like the applied psychology. And one thing that I was like discussing was how lived experience is so essential. Okay. So what I mean by that is the way you were brought up paints the picture of your reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you weren't brought up in that way, then you almost can't fault people for not knowing what they don't know because they just don't know.
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
Right. Totally. So when I had brought that statistic up, the first question I got was like, that's cool. But what does that have to do with our like industry?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if you don't know, like maybe you're the problem, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, isn't that self-evident? That means your workforce is going to be different. That means that the way people look. And then basically I had to write like, okay, yes, let me paint this obviously for you. I'm like, with different cultures, you'll have to understand different cultural contexts, which means that you'll have to be more adaptable and accepting to different races going forward in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like, I don't know what it's like to be Indian, but I have to be open to your interpretation of what life is like being Indian.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas like if you didn't, basically the person asking the question is not from a marginalized community. So I was like, oh, you don't understand what it feels like to be marginalized. So you don't understand the jump we need to make where it's like, I need to understand how you work versus your upbringing is like, this is how we work. Do you get the difference there?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you work? Is how I'm interpreting it. It's like, all right, how is the game played? Right. And then from their perspective, it's like, this is how the game's played. But it's like, you can't run that simulation, that like mental thought process, if the entire world is running off of a different like cultural context.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Like fascinating though. But it's interesting because that keeps coming up, especially when you work in DEI spaces. You know, diversity, equity, inclusion. You're like, oh, we have to be more open-minded.
Yeah.
That's like basically the name of the game.
Right.
You know? And it's interesting that in 2041, like the government of Canada fully said that. They're like, this is going to be the percentage. You know? But it makes sense if we're all immigrating here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, that's
and then
the
we
projection.
have first generation kids.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's pretty freaking obvious, but it's just fascinating to me every time I run into that hurdle where it's like, oh, I have to explain this to you, you know? It's like imagine. I won't give this away, but if you know the story, it's funny, and I told you guys about it. But like, there's a picture of all these white people, right? And like, this person was like, this external person was like, oh, there's no diversity here, and then the internal person was like, well, you don't know. They could be, you know, sexually diverse. They could be like 1/18 black.
Right.
You know? And you're just like, right, but I need to see what I need to see. As like a person that's like visibly not like them, I'm not going to be like, well, you know, maybe they're partly Asian. I don't know.
Right.
You know? But that's the thing about marketing where it's like, you know, presentation matters. But again, it's like that person was coming from the cultural context of not understanding this. So it's like, I can't even fault you for not understanding. But it's like, it's also your job. So maybe you should like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you should know these things at this point.
Like, it's pretty self-evident, right?
Yeah,
like, it's just a bunch of white people and you're trying to say that those white people are diverse. You're like, not really. Like, you know.
I mean, yeah. How I don't know. It depends on the term diverse, right? Scottish, English. Like these are people technically diverse, right. But like then you're saying, but you're saying European.
See what I mean?
Just say the word European, right?
Right, and that's my confusion because I'm like, Yeah, you get it. So it's like what that's the cultural context. It's like, no, they are diverse. Yeah, they're Scottish, Irish, whatever. And you're like, no, we mean like visibly diverse. Like we
Yeah,
need
yeah.
to see an Indian person there or something, you know? Like throw a black person in there. But then you know what's crazy about the DI space though? This is like didn't plan on talking
Hmm.
about this, but like you also get into tokenization.
That's another
So
that's a problem. Yeah.
right, it's crazy. So like I won't give this one fully away. I mean like you always have to I always have to talk in code. But there was this like event that was happening and I was invited to the event and I was like and then I noticed that only one type of person was going to that event.
Hmm.
And I was like, if I had gone to that event, I'd be tokenized. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
in the
Okay.
photos, like
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily. It's sort of like this. It's like, well, we are diverse. Look at our one person,
Hmm.
you know. And then it's like, yeah, that one person doesn't mean you're diverse. It just means that they felt compelled to came, or you know what I mean. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you, you know what I mean. And it's like, if you don't understand that inherently, you are part of the problem. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how else to put that, but it's like, can you not tell that that's a bit of tokenization?
Hmm.
We need to make sure we got to make sure these invites go out so that we have some diversity here. But then if you look at the photos, it's like 99% one, and then like the one off person who arrived.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That feels a bit weird. Yeah.
But all right. So it's funny you said it feels a bit weird because to them it's like, look, we're diverse. But to me and everyone else who's from that culture, we're like, oh, that's a little weird. You're like, you're like pointing that guy out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Right, right, right. But I get it from their
But
perspective too, though. Like they're trying to reach this diversity goal, but they don't. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily the right way to. I mean, maybe we don't know what the right way is, or they don't know what's the right way to get to that point, right? Like how
yeah,
if it depends on the space that you're in, right?
facts. Facts. Okay. No. All right, that's interesting you said that. They don't know how to get there. Um, I heard the best line about this. I think I brought it up before. I'm not too sure, or maybe I just told you about it. But this person who told me was like, so they're diverse, and they're like they're a huge champion for this diversity, right? And they said, "You're selling me the brochure of diversity." And I was like, "Oh, that's a great way to put it because it's on the surface, it looks like it, but then okay, let's look at the heads of your departments. Let's
Mm-hmm.
look at the leaders of your organization, right? And if you don't actually make a structural change, then it's not truly diverse. It's just you're selling me the brochure of it. Look, all our underlings are diverse,
Right.
but the people at the top are not, right? And what he was saying is that the people that work in these spaces, if you are of the majority, not the minority, you have like an existential crisis on your hands. Meaning you have to get fired in order to achieve your true goal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But it's like that's counterintuitive. It's like you realize you're fighting for
Well, it
you're
takes time,
fighting so that
but yeah, it's not necessarily fire. Just you retire, or
no,
someone
but
else has to
actually,
take up.
yeah, but all right,
Right.
you just need to
It's
get out of here.
yeah, 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 yeah. Of course, but that's if that's what's going to take time to get to that point. You can't.
For sure. But what I'm wondering, no, so I agree with you. I agree with you. But like, it's ironic because it's like, you're championing for your future, not being here,
Yeah,
but they
if they
don't
can
realize.
acknowledge that, if they can acknowledge that, like I know eventually, like these jobs won't only be white people, like these top positions.
But then it's like, if I knew that, like if I was working in an organization and it's like all Filipino people, right? And they're like, well, we want to build some diversity in here.
Mm.
And I'm like, I would quit. I'd be like, I'm comfortable enough to find a different job. Like, I don't think that, like, if you truly stand by your morals, you'll stand by it to the fullest, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But I feel like you have to have confidence in your skills to do that, I guess. Maybe people are like, oh, this is the cushiest job I've ever had,
I
you
don't know.
know?
I don't know. I
But
don't.
like,
But yeah, it's hard to know what they think. Yeah.
but if you're a true believer is what I'm saying. It's like, or are you just selling me the idea? Because if you're a true believer, wouldn't you resign? Wouldn't you?
I don't know. Yeah.
No, but like in the actual, like, let's think of it like black and white terms.
Sure.
Like, wouldn't you? Like, right? If you really want it to be fully diverse, but you're not of a diverse culture, wouldn't you resign if you're a true believer in what you're saying?
Sure, maybe, yeah.
But you're not, because it's ironic. Like, that's the irony of this whole movement, you know? Yeah. Anywho. So, all right, quickly moving on. It's interesting. Last week was my 10th year as a black belt, and I was thinking about this one. It's like, there are, okay, I won't even bring it about martial arts, because this is more a life thing. You can, how do I put this? You can be a painter as a hobby, or you can be a painter.
Okay, yeah.
Do you get the differentiation? You get it, right? And it was interesting because I was thinking about this with the black belt. It's like, I can be, martial arts is either a hobby or it's a lifestyle. You know, you can be a baker, shout out Arvel. You could be a baker who's like, this is my job, this is my hobby. Or you could be like, I'm a baker. You know?
Yeah.
And we like fully embrace the archetype. Right? And it's almost like, who are we if we're decompartmentalized in different ways? So, okay, what I mean by that is like, all right, my best example is this. So, martial arts, right? In my first studio where I got my first black belt, it's like you were made to act in a specific way, right? Like, just for discipline,
right.
You know, the Bushido code, whatever. And I really took that to heart because I was like, oh, this is how I want to live my life. This is who I'm going to become, right? And now everything, Kevin, shout out Kevin across the street, he's the one who said this. I took a video of him. I clipped the video of it. He said, martial arts isn't a hobby, it's a lifestyle. If you're a true martial artist, you approach everything in a martial artist way, right? It's like, if you're a true baker, you'll approach everything in a baker way. If you're a true marketer, you'll approach everything in a marketing way. You know, like how your thought process is, like how you move into that. And it's weird because it's like, I would teach these individuals not knowing that it was just in those 45 minutes, 1 hour that I saw you, that you would be like this.
Yeah.
But then I would forget that it's like, no, they're only here 3 times a week for 45 minutes. I don't know you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that was the mind blow to me, where it's like decompartmentalization. Who you are in one moment isn't who you are in all moments.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, if we have those fractured personalities, is that the healthiest way to live? Maybe that's why people hate their jobs. Maybe that's why like they want to be something else, but it's like, I can't be myself around these people. I don't know. Your thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
I remember this thing from a long time ago, but it's always, even among friends, you're different. Among family, you're different.
Yeah, for sure. No, totally.
Right.
But there's 100%. No, but there's a self there that's consistent. Okay, for example, I'm so lucky. I love my job, right? Because my job and my department, my team, shout out you guys, is extremely welcoming, because we have a foundation of diversity, and like coming as you are, but that can really mean come as you are. Like, I've said some weird stuff in there where it's like, you know, I'm like, so I get told like, hey, maybe don't bring that up. It's like, all right, cool. Like that's I won't bring that up, but who I am is the same, you know? And I knew this from one of my coworkers, shout out you, who we're friends outside of work, right? And she was saying, oh, you're consistent. And she's like, oh yeah, I like the consistency. Whereas like before, in professional settings, I'd have to put on a mask. I'd have to change You know what I mean?
Right.
But like my excitement towards things is consistent.
Sure.
Right. So you're right. Under different circumstances, we have to be different people. Like for my parents, I have to be their kid. For you, I'm your friend, you know, but the consistency is that I'm still excited about the thing.
Sure.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say, where it's like, when you know who you are, you can be consistent as that thing. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think that should be the way. I'd say.
Like okay, for example, if I brought, like, I know you so well because we've known each other our whole lives. If I brought you to a party, I know exactly what you're gonna do. Like, I'm not gonna be surprised. I'm bringing you to a party. I'm like, oh, dude, what? Vish is doing some crazy stuff I've never seen before. No, I'm like, no, you're gonna be you consistently throughout all this thing.
Sure.
Right? Even when we live together, I'm like, I know exactly who you're gonna be. Right? And you are exactly who I knew you would be. Right? But that's like, no, right? But it's like, that's the consistency I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like, I'm sure even if I saw you at work, you wouldn't be like some outspoken, like crazy. That's not me, right? But I'm always outspoken, right? Like, even in our friendship, I'm always just like, right? But for you, I can imagine you at work, and if I saw it, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like Jared, it's authenticity. That's what we were talking about before. It just clicked. For like old podcasts ago, it's like, I think that's, you remember we were talking about authenticity? And I'm like, that's the part that pisses me off. When I see somebody who's not authentic, where I see you being two different people in two different places, I'm like, bro, just like be yourself. If you're a hateful person, be a hateful person, whatever. We can like work with that.
Right.
But if it's like you're switching it up every time, it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then you don't really know who this person is. Like,
but then not only that, but I think you don't even know who you are.
That's probably true.
You know what I'm saying? And that, right? And that freaks me out because I'm like, I don't know when you're just gonna flip the switch. You know what I mean? And that's what's really freaky. And like those people, I'm very tentative around because it's like, I gotta gauge you first. I don't know who you're gonna be in every situation. You know?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And I think, like, at least for me, the biggest test for that is like martial arts, because it's like, especially jiu-jitsu, because like, who are you gonna be when you're about to lose? You know, when I lose, when I like get tapped out, I'm like, I'm always excited because I'm like, how did you do that?
Right.
Because now I can reverse engineer it. I've learned something new, right? Whereas I've seen people who like the buzzer's about to go off, it goes off, and they still go for that thing, that armbar. You're like, bro, it already ended. I mean, what?
Right. Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh, that's you. But then, like, all of a sudden they're nice, and you're like, okay. So you're nice to my face, but you're trying to break my arm past the time limit.
Right.
So then that right there, it's like fractured personalities, and you can't escape that. Like Cron Gracie, the father of like the best jiu-jitsu fighter in the world, he's like, give me like 10 minutes on the mat, I'll know exactly who you are, because you, like, are you like a survival? You know what I'm trying to say? It's like in those dire straits, it's like, bro, why are you gonna cheat? We're not even trying to go for real. Like, really, you needed that? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I feel like, well, all that being said, it's important to like stand in your own. This sounds so dumb. Stand in your own power. You know. And I feel like as males, we don't really. So I stole that line from Tara, because it's like, you know, she like empowers youth, right?
Yeah.
Primarily, like, she likes to focus on like females, right? But I think you and I don't really like experience that because we're males. So like, it's weird to say like stand in your own power, because like, well, we are already naturally more powerful,
right? Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? But it's a good tenet to say, like, people who have those fractured personalities, who act like two different people around different people, it's like just do you, bro. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, because that was like weighing on me a lot. I was thinking about that, where it's like there's so many facets to our society that are unhealthy, and being fractured in who you are, that's just going to be like your whole life is just stress.
Sure. Yeah. But
that makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's hard to know like where people are at, right? Everyone has a different
Yeah.
story to tell or whatever. That sometimes things it's
Yeah.
trauma. It's trauma, right? These things. I think
Yeah.
these things relate to trauma and just like what's like why how they grew up or what they were around, right? That caused them to like not necessarily be authentic or be able to be free to be authentic. It
Yeah. I
depends
see
on
what you're
how
saying.
it all comes down to how we were raised, who raised us, right? How
Facts.
free did
Facts.
we were
Okay.
we able to be us when we were younger? And I think I've seen a lot of these other videos where it's like being able to make mistakes, but then not, you know what I mean? Like our parents not being like
Yes.
directly angry at us. It's or like you know what I mean, or pushing us in a certain way. More like letting us explore. This is where it comes down to.
Yeah. No. Fair. No, 100%. Actually, that's a good point. It makes me think of actually Dragon Ball Z too, because like Vegeta, when you see his upbringing, it's full of trauma, and that's why he's so like hateful against the
Hmm.
world. But like Goku's trauma was filled with love, or his childhood was filled with love, and it's like that's why he's so like redemption oriented towards the
Yeah.
world.
Like yeah. Look at the things that like
Well, that's true, actually.
impacted my life over like Superman is like a huge thing, and
Yeah.
and the symbolisms and the meanings behind who the character of Superman is things that I like to try. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be
No.
the,
No. Yeah.
but these
Facts.
things again, it all comes back to like childhood, where it all started from. These are the foundations that are
Yeah.
building you.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 100%. That's a great point, actually. Yeah. Totally. And as we get older, it's like it makes me realize more and more. It's really built into your childhood,
Hmm.
and you don't really because it's so true. It's like we're compounded people.
Yeah.
Like our experiences just compounded over time. Actually, I posted this video of Goku being afraid of needles, and I think I sent it to
Oh
you. And he's like, "Oh,
yeah.
this is
Yeah
literally
yeah.
me." Yeah, yeah. And then Tara watched it, and she's like, "Oh, this is probably why you're afraid of needles." I'm like, "Well, why?" And she's like, "Because you watched this as a kid, and you probably just mirrored this behavior,
Right.
you know." I was like, "Oh, that's true," but I mirrored like other things
Sure.
from
Yeah.
like
It couldn't just
him
be
as
one
well.
thing. I don't believe it to be just one thing. I feel like like other things like that's one of them, and another like or it's like you
Right.
had that image and it did happen like that, so you're adding on to it,
Right.
right?
Right, when I was a kid, right, everyone holding me down for that blood
Yeah.
test,
That
and I
right
was, like,
there.
freaking
Yeah.
out, and then seeing it again like Goku,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Exactly. Yeah.
"Oh, true." Yeah, I see it. But see, that's the point. It's like our whole lives are just a pyramid. It's like you start with this, like, base layer, and then you build and build and build and build,
Mhm.
you know? But you wanna make sure you have a strong foundation,
Yes.
going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that immigrant parents, they I really think that when you're new to a country, you have a very specific outlook and about protection and like love and loyalty and like sticking to your crew because you come to like a different world essentially if you're from like a third world to the first world, and then you're like, well, I don't know anything about this place, so I need to make sure that I'm safe, my family's secure, who can I trust. But then if you make it insulated, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna like focus on my family.
Hmm.
Then that builds a sense of security in your children because you're like, okay, like I know I'm safe.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all of the stupid things that I've done that have been wastes of money and like everything, as I was pursuing them, like martial arts even, right? Like longest time, right? And but I knew that no matter what, I could always go home.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Right.
And I do you feel that way too? It's like you must feel that way too. Where it's like if everything
Sure. Yeah.
goes to
Yeah.
hell,
Yeah.
I got a house in my parents' house. I got
Hmm.
a place in my parents'
Hmm.
house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I think a lot of people, because it's funny when we were growing up, my parents would always say to me, like, they're like, it's a good thing you're not like Western people. Switch Western for a different word. And I was like, why? And like, they kick you out when you're 18. And I was like, oh, that sounds right. You're laughing because you heard that too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And but then as you are around those people, and you're like, oh, that's some trauma for you. Like those people that actually did get kicked out at 18. You're like, 18, you gotta get a job. You gotta find your way in this world. You're like, oh, but I have nothing, blah, blah. Too bad. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You don't have a home here anymore. Like imagine the trauma associated with that, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Whereas like for us, it's very like protective, you know?
Yes. It depends, yeah,
And
where
maybe
you're
that's
coming from. But yes. I don't know if it's
but
necessarily
maybe that's why
all
it's also
immigrant cultures, but yeah.
no, facts are facts. No, it's not for sure, for sure. That's stereotyping. But it's funny because like, okay, I brought this up and it's true. When do you go from a stereotype to like a fact? Like stereotypes are facts for like they're stereotypes for a reason. They're real. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like Filipino people do eat with spoons. This is so crazy. So like, I'll say something like, "Oh, Filipino people eat like with spoons, like rice," and like, "Oh, it's stereotyping. You shouldn't be like that, right?" And you're like, "Okay, well, statistically, it turns out that every culture doesn't eat like every meal with a spoon."
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I was literally at a like a family event at a non-Asian like environment, and we were talking about the spoon thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, yeah, I just saw this video about like how most like no other culture uses a spoon for anything but soup or ice cream. And I was like, what? And I even posted that same video on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and people were commenting like, wait, it was like a Filipino video, basically like how we eat everything with a spoon. And then people were commenting like, wait, you guys do that? Like, I didn't know. Like, I only use it for soup and ice cream. And I was like, that's our like number one. If we had to choose any utensil, it would be a spoon,
I think
right?
that's funny because maybe
Please do.
I'm Filipino because I only me in my household, like even if it was like roti or some
Well, you
things
spend
like
a lot
that.
of time at my house and stuff, though, bro.
Oh, maybe, yeah,
Like
maybe
growing up,
maybe
like
that's
we
why.
went to a lot of family parties. No, bro, right?
That's
Like,
true.
we'd always give you a spoon with, right? So maybe that is why you're just like, oh, this is just. It's way more like effective. How you gonna eat rice with a fork? That confused me. I watched them eat
Well,
rice with a fork. And like,
yeah,
bro's falling through the middle.
no, but
Use
I
spoon.
think it was well in India we use our hands, right? It's meant to be for everything.
That makes sense. That makes sense,
But like
though.
because
That's fair.
you're mixing in the curry and everything. But like for me, even with the spoon, I'd just be mixing in with the spoon, and it's still
And still eat with it because it's like why are we gonna add an extra layer to this thing? It's already useful in the way it is,
sure.
like the
Yeah, yeah,
spoon.
yeah.
Yeah. But then it's weird, like you see the reaction to that, and you're like, I'm so confused. Like, or actually, one thing they're talking to this like Chinese person, and they were like talking about chopsticks,
Mm.
and then they asked me like, oh, do your parents use like fork and spoon at home? And I'm like, actually, my dad likes to use chopsticks a lot, and they're like, oh, I'm so confused because you're Filipino, but that's a Asian. I'm like, no, we just like literally take whatever is useful.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
dad's like, oh, this is actually way more easier than you know what I mean? It's like we when we think about these boundaries, it's like just break the boundary, bro.
But
If you really think
that
of
should be
each
what
other,
it should be here like that. Like
yeah, facts, facts. Yeah, true.
it.
Like my dad would most likely eat with chopsticks over any other utensil. I'm thinking
Mhm.
maybe a spoon would be like it's either chopsticks or a spoon. But yeah, you're right. It's like we're surrounded by diversity. You
Yeah.
steal from other cultures, bro. Like literally, chopsticks are like your hands if you know how to use them well. They're
Mhm.
like your hands, but not your hands.
Yeah.
Like what was that historical? I think you told me about this, where the the Europeans went to Japan and the Japanese were like, "Oh, you're barbarians." They're like, "What do you mean?" Because you're literally stabbing your food and cutting it up, whereas we're like gently picking it up
Mhm.
with these like chopsticks. And then like the other side, like the Westerners were like, "Oh, you're so weird," and like the Japanese were like, "You're so weird." It's like,
Exactly.
"Oh, I guess
Yeah.
we're both weird,"
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
But sometimes I do use the chopstick as a fork to lift up things.
The chopstick?
Yeah, I poke it into the meat.
Oh yeah, it's just easier. Yeah, I know, like whatever. Yeah, it's always
No, no, no.
okay.
I'm just
Innovation, bro.
exactly. Yeah,
Let's
bring in.
next level. Yeah. All right. Last thing, because I got 12 minutes. So because I really want to bring this up. So I read the Hunt for Zero Point. Okay.
Mhm.
And actually, wait, hold on. Before we go into that, I remember I wanted to say one thing about martial arts. When you look at martial arts like a lifestyle and not a hobby, then you could be more fluid with what you learn. Okay, so what I mean by that
Mhm.
is like if you are literally in the pursuit of martial arts for martial arts sake, you'll learn from everyone. And I noticed that with Dragon Ball Z, like Goku had multiple teachers, right?
Right.
And then the best teacher was like Master Roshi, who was like, he's like, oh, Master Roshi, I can like learn from you again. And he's like, no, you're going to travel. And then he's like, why? He's like, I've taught you everything you know. I know. So like, just go out and life will be your teacher. And I think maybe that's what ingrained into me watching all these anime, because like, I've noticed that there are some diehards for like one style, you know, or like one gym, one academy, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's because it's a hobby to you. It's like, this is my team. This will be my team forever. But if you're like a martial artist, like, wouldn't you want to get better at every aspect of martial arts? You'd want multiple teachers. But then I think it comes down to like self-independence, because you have to be able to be like, I will stand on my own, because it's, you know, it gets lonely. Like at my first martial arts place, they said like, make sure you make a friend. That's why I brought Adrian, right? Martial brothers, because like they're like, the road to black belt, especially at this place, is so difficult. You need somebody to bring you along. You need to like climb with one another, right? And then after achieving black belt and then trying to go to these different places, I noticed that nobody would go with me. You know, even the people like I'm like going ahead. I'm like, hey guys, you know, jujitsu is like number one. Like it will destroy us.
Yeah,
so we should probably learn.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, you go learn that. I'm gonna stay here. And then you're like, oh, it's lonely. It's lonely when you like want to really do things in life, because you have to set aside the people and like go for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's the difference between like a hobby and a lifestyle. If you're a true martial artist, like you're willing to go alone.
Yeah.
In pursuit of that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, all right. This is my little spiel. Now we're talking about aliens. So, The Hunt for Zero Point, I finished the book. I brought it up in the last podcast. I finished the book. And this is the craziest mind blow. So, the book was from, so as I get into UFO stuff and I get into the government disclosure and stuff, all the big names are in this book. I'm like, that's why everyone keeps referencing this book. So, apparently, they figured out a way to alter space, right? So like they
alter what? Alter what? Say that again.
Alter space.
Oh, alter. Okay.
Right. So so a lot of UFO lore people say that these things aren't moving faster than the speed of light. Okay? And then all the physicists say you can't move faster than the speed of light. The speed of light is defined. And then we're like, well, maybe they figured out a way to move faster than the speed of light, right? And then as I'm delving into more of this research, watching these videos, a lot of the scientists are saying, no, they're jumping. They're creating like gravitational shifts. Like, remember Interstellar?
Yeah.
That was a great example of it. When he's like, space is like this, and then he's like, but if you can create a wormhole, you just bend the paper and jump, right? So
that's in a lot of the sci-fi shows or space shows.
They figured it out.
Yeah,
Bro, they're putting it in there because they've known for a long time. Okay, let me get into it. So, well, if you're just listening to this on audio, imagine a piece of paper and then you draw a straight line. This is straight from Interstellar. And then like, how do you move from there to there? It takes too long to go straight using space, like using the speed of light. So you fold the paper and then you
bend space. Yeah.
You bend space, right? So they figured out a way, allegedly, to do this. Okay. And what they were saying is there's a difference between black and white projects. White projects are what we see.
Sure.
Right? Think of black projects like prototypes.
Yeah.
So what we see conventionally through our means are like only what they're letting us see. But allegedly they have figured all this out. They just don't know how to release it, and there's economics associated with it. So my best example is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is so against aliens, and like everyone's like, dude, he's crazy. And then like, how can you deny? He's like, well, where's the cell phone footage? And then this person that I was listening to, Stephen Greer, I talked to him before. He was saying that he's either not a real scientist or he's working for them. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. There's no, like, when he's like, where are the photos? The U.S. military has literally said we have high resolution photos of these things. We can't release them though. Not for us to blow our minds, but like literally because we don't want Russia to know we're spying. Because if you send out the photo, then Russell's like, wait a minute, you're over there?
Right.
It's not actually about the aliens. Okay. So, um, so the trip is that they figured this out, but who figured it out first? So apparently the Nazis were working on this. It sounds crazy. The Nazis were working on this in World War II, and how they figured this out. So this guy literally went. He's like I don't know. He's a reporter. He's just like an author, but he went from like these generals and like was reading all these files, and that's what's in this book. And it's not even a long book. You can read it. And what they found out was there were these like labs with like chemicals, and they're like, oh, the only chemical that you can like have with this is like something that like it needs so much power to create a gravitational all right, I'm not explaining this well. I need to like make it as simple as possible. So you remember that video where there's like a bed sheet and then you put the ball, and then the heavier the ball,
Yeah.
it warps gravity. Okay, so we know that we need to create something with so much power that it creates such a heavy gravitational pull that it bends space. We know that with planets, right?
Yeah.
And what they're saying is there's no way you can create something with, you would need like a nuclear bomb to create enough energy to bend space in that way, right? Because like whatever you're creating needs a lot of power to make so much gravity that will bend space around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the example of the bed sheet and then the ball. Usually planets do that, right? We have planets that, right? But if you can tap into this thing called 0-point energy, which is what the book's called, like the hunt for 0 point, then you're able to create enough power to create that thing that that creates enough gravity to shift space.
Right.
That makes sense? And what they're saying that the 0-point energy is the negative space all around us. So like,
okay. Yeah.
Like matter, they talk about all the time, like matter and antimatter. And what is antimatter? The thing that's like opposing. If there was no antimatter, we'd all be squished together.
Right.
Because matter needs to be pushed away. If you look at the center of a nucleus, there's like space there. So what's creating that space? Right. So if you're able to tap into that space, that's like, it's like abundant energy. Okay. So there are some theories on how they could have done this. And basically, do you remember how Hitler was super into the occult?
Sure.
Right? Like, the swastika is the symbol for power in many cultures, right? He just turned it on its side. Right? So knowing that, fun fact, if you didn't know, like that's why if you look at Japanese anime, they have the swastika, but it's not on the side. It's like turned correctly. That's like, it's a Hindu symbol, right? So that's how you know, like, okay, Hitler was definitely into the occult, right? And one thing that they say he was looking into was alchemy. So turning lead into gold or something like that.
Right.
But in order to do that, you need like a lot of power, right? You can chemically shift things, but you need a lot of energy to do it. It's how they split the atom bomb. How do you split an atom? You shoot a lot of like energy at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Sure.
You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So exactly the same thing. So if we can create something with enough power, we can create something with a lot of gravity. And then if we can create a lot of gravity, we can shift space. Okay. So they were finding that in these labs, they were finding all these chemicals that were related to alchemy. And they're like, oh, they're working on anti-gravity. Like, I don't know if they figured it out, like the Nazis, but they're definitely working on it. Okay. Now jump to another conspiracy, which is not a conspiracy, just people don't know about it. I'm going to buy the book. It's called Operation Paperclip. Okay. So this is not in this book. It's referenced in this book, but I haven't read that book. So what they did in Operation Paperclip is they took all of the Nazi scientists and they became the foundation for NASA. This is fact.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's either like live with your war crimes or work for us.
Yeah.
They don't know that NASA was actually founded on Nazis. Okay. So I knew that already, but I was like, well, why okay, sure, maybe they're geniuses. But after reading this book, I'm like, no, you're trying to take the info.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what were you guys working on?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that's where you get these black budget programs where the Pentagon, they're saying the Pentagon manages all this, where they have the taxpayer money to fund these black project initiatives where they're working on anti-gravity.
Right.
So remember that video you sent to me where it's like, oh, it looks like they found the anti-gravity.
Yeah.
Right? You sent me that video, and you're like, oh, this is how far they've come along on it. So they mentioned that in the book. Those are white projects. Those are the things that show us.
No. But then even in the video, it was like they said that they don't know what they've done so far. He only completed to that point, and he had left. Right.
Exactly.
So that was like a long time ago. So. Yeah,
bro, everything is freaking clicking now. So, so we know that Hitler was into the occult. He was searching for the anti-gravity thing. We don't know if maybe he like found a craft or something. They say he found a craft. Okay. That's why he was working on like how'd this work. And during World War II, there were these things called. You can totally look this up. Sounds crazy. It's weird. I probably sound super crazy, but like.
But okay, I just want to add like a little bit more to Hitler. I feel that I don't know if it's.
Oh my god, I'm running out of time, bro.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know. I don't know if it feels like he's. Let's say okay. I don't know if he found a craft or not, but I just think that it makes sense for him to look into. He's trying to find a weapon that nobody else has.
Exactly. Yes, facts. In order to rule the world,
of course,
that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so during World War II, there are so many cases of these UFOs that act like the Tic Tacs that Commander David Fravor was talking about. They would literally fly up to the bombers, like look at them and like, oh, what are they doing? And like fly away, right? And they called them Foo Fighters. So like there's a band called Foo Fighters, and I'm like, oh, that's where you took the name from. So if you Google this, the Foo Fighters, they were reported all the time, and they said that it was German, because we didn't know what it was. So we're just like, oh, it's a German weapon, a spying weapon. Like they're watching us like do this thing. So like there have been accounts of like these UFO sightings forever, but it really took place during this time. Okay, so Hitler took all these people, Nazis, and I think this is why they don't want to out this, because if you out the UFO stuff, you're going to realize like what I'm telling you now, which sounds crazy, which is like, wait, you just work with the enemy? Oh, we just let people go? And then it's like you realize the world is gray, not black and white. You know what I'm saying? All right. There's so much more to this, but okay. So then there's that. So the thing that I thought was interesting, two things. Austin, Texas was mentioned in the book as to where Hal Puthoff's office was. Hal Puthoff is the guy that like in charge of this whole UFO thing. And I was like, oh, it's funny because like, remember it's like it's the new Silicon Valley.
Sure, yeah.
I say, but it's like, oh, it's always been Tech Haven, apparently.
Sure.
Right? But the second part is, so I'm 100% convinced that they're time travelers now. The reason why, aside from the like the engineering, the biology that we talked about in the past podcast, the reason why they are time travelers is if you can bend space, you bend time. Like by definition, because time and space are linked. So even if they're from a different planet, they're still time travelers. The origin I don't know about.
Sure,
but they are time travelers by definition. And the reason why I said Kronos in the beginning is because the project that they were working on, that this guy uncovered, one of the black projects, was called Project Kronos. And the person was like, oh, do you know why we called it Kronos? It's like sent you the book, and then like because Kronos means time, and we're working on a time machine. Bro, mind blow. Are we working on a time machine behind the scenes that people don't even know about? And then because once you've created a time machine in one timeline, you can jump to any timeline now, and that's why you see UFO crafts way back when. You know, the ancient astronaut theory, the ancient aliens TV show, that's what they always talked about. And you thought they were crazy. We thought they were crazy. Everyone thinks they're crazy. You're like, oh, dude, we're making fun of you guys. But now I'm kind of like, wait a minute. This is actually making sense. Like even that one hieroglyph where they're like, oh, that looks like a watch on his hand. I'm like, oh, you're jumping so far. Like, why would they have a watch on your hand? You know, but it's like, maybe it was a watch,
Maybe,
bro.
yeah.
Like, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Like,
know.
with everything.
I'm sure that's what I'm saying. They have always been working on black projects. Why wouldn't they be? If they could hide
like,
the atom bomb for so long, right? And that was many years.
that was
right?
that was a good point to bring up. So like, because of the amount of energy that they're using for this thing, that's like rivaling what they said was so when they found the chemical in the Nazi place, in the like hideout, they were saying like, in order to actually transmute like this object into another object, you would need the power of a nuclear bomb, like Hiroshima level nuclear bomb.
Mm-hmm.
You need that much energy, right? And because of that, that's when they linked the two and were like we have to put this under the Nuclear Bomb Act or the Atomic Energy Act, because it's on that level. And if you think, if you're like, oh, dude, there's no way people can keep secrets that much. Like, I heard that so many times on the Joe Rogan podcast, you know, because he's like super into UFOs, and like all of his friends are just like, nobody can keep a secret like that. And that's what everyone thinks. Nobody can keep a secret like that. They literally did it with the atom bomb. They didn't tell you that that was being made until they used it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what do you mean they can't keep secrets? Oppenheimer, the movie, showed us they can. Christopher Nolan's trying to tell us the truth the entire freaking time. I'm convinced.
Well, I mean, yeah, it did. There was a leak, though, right? In Oppenheimer.
Yeah, but there's the book. There are leaks, but people don't believe it, and that's their psyop. Where it's like, oh, they're just crazy. But it's like, you literally have testimony from these government officials. So if they're if this is a lie, you better fire those government officials.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that make sense? Like, if you have the government official talking about this and you're like, oh, this is not real, so why does he still have his job?
Right.
So there are leaks. We just don't credit the leaks. And that's their genius. That's their psyop that they talk about. Mm-hmm. We just make you look like you're crazy, and then we won't listen to you.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I sound crazy right now. No, but like, okay, but you agree? Like, this totally makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it makes sense that it would be
Operation Paperclip.
Right. Well, yeah, right? You would take the best scientists. I feel like, I don't know if that's a conspiracy anymore, right?
The what?
With the Nazis working at NASA?
No, it's not. They wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
But nobody knows about it. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, there's so many shows about it too now, so I feel like...
Right. And that's the crazy part about life, where it's just like, we just need to make you accept it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how crazy the thing is. Hey guys, there's aliens. But like later, we'll just be like, yeah, Christopher Nolan was telling you the truth the whole time. And you're like, oh, it's okay. we love that movie. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you just have to make people accept the information. But when you first hear it, you're like, that is crazy.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. But anything you don't know would be anything. Let's say if this is the first time you heard it, yeah, of course you're gonna think crazy, right? But if you keep hearing it over and over, then you're not gonna say it's crazy anymore.
Ah, true. So it's like, you're gonna hear this podcast and you'll be like, dude, he's off the rocker. And then you start looking into it, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's something here.
Sure.
And then you start to accept it, because it's like, it just keeps getting repeated.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean? Or do you mean all lies become true?
No. I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay, cool. There's a tactic. Or I want to talk about Brain GPT, but I guess we don't really know too much about that.
Brain GPT?
Are we?
Oh.
Yeah, just Joe Rogan posted it and I reposted it. I don't know if it's real, but I was just like, if we're here, we're crazy. Like, where it can read your mind now. They put it on like a sensor, and then what he was trying to say, they wrote it on the thing. So there's a way to communicate. We'll look into that later. All right, so I'll leave with this, which is, because you're like, all lies become truth. So there's a psychology trick, and it's in consumer behavior. That's what I first learned about. I'm like, oh, I love these tactics. It's called negative source bias. I can tell you that, like, I don't know, the Holocaust wasn't real, which is a big thing right now, right? Like, oh, the Holocaust wasn't real. And then you won't remember who told you that, but you'll remember the fact. That's why it's a negative source bias. You won't remember who the source is, but you'll remember the fact. And even if the fact is wrong, that's why redaction, not redactions, like what was that thing where it's like you
Which,
like you in the article
you not
you counter what
redact.
you said or something.
Yeah, you update the article, or like you
there's a word, it's like
there's a word, correct, basically you're correcting the article, right?
Yeah, but nobody remembers that. That's the trick.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of marketers will use. Like PR people will just like write something that's totally false, and then we'll put like a little article about how we were wrong, but nobody will remember the new article. They'll remember the bigger story.
Yeah, because I mean, like even that saying that it's been changed, or that's inside the article, it's not in the headline.
Facts. That's true. That's another one, like the headline bias, right? Okay, I'm gonna be super late if I don't stop now. All right, till next week. Yeah, take it easy, Vish. Next week will be Christmas Eve, depending on when we do it. 24th, 23rd. Yeah. Anyways, all right, till next week. Great talking as always. Take it easy, Vish.
Peace.
Bye. All right, hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all those fun things, and check out our sponsors, Zenro Clothing Co., Portian Bakery, and Podbean. Take it easy, Vish.
Peace.